Morning, everyone. Hi.
Good morning.
I'd like to call the meeting to order here. Any announcements? I don't have any. No? Okay. Old business, minutes. Everyone reviewed the minutes? Take a motion?
So move.
Carl, Seth, I'll have you a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Everybody online, can you hear okay? Just checking.
Yes.
I
Yes.
can hear.
Hey, we have an awesome presentation today by Soil and Water's very own, Belle Horning.
Everybody online can see the presentation, correct?
Yep.
Correct. Yes.
It's up here, so. Get
Which
rid of
one?
that one.
This one.
Yeah.
We good?
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Valerie Horning. I work here at the Soil and Water Conservation District, as many of you may know. So today we're talking about why the fish cross the road, or the salamander, or the turtle, or the small little fuzzy creature. And go ahead, Michelle, hit the little button, see if which way did you do it? Oh, yep, my animation works. That's my one animation, but hey, we cross the road to get to the other side, and NAC is about how they get to the other side. It's about a whole lot of other things as well, but go ahead. NAC is the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative, and boy, am I proud of myself for getting that right. It's 13 North Atlantic states from Maine to West Virginia. It is a network of individuals and agencies focused on improving aquatic connectivity across this 13-state region. And basically, they have a website, a protocol that we follow to fill out, which I didn't bring with me, but oh well. It's a couple-page form, or it's usually done through a tablet online. Not the greatest little process, but it works. And it scores the connectivity, the passage for those fish and other little creatures so that they can, in fact, cross the road without dying or cross the road at all. So go ahead. There, like I said, there's an assessment protocol. You have to be certified, go through a training. Doug and I went through the awesome original training over in Onondaga County, in which Doug found the most lovely harmful algal bloom to send Tim Schneider into. I can't believe he actually did it. I wouldn't. But we have to go through a training certification process in order to be able to do so relatively accurately. And then they have an instruction manual, things like that. So, okay. Here in Cayuga County, we started this process about 2018. I think the training might have been the year before. I really don't remember. We started with, it was an Ag and Markets grant, and it was, we had to pick certain areas because you'll see there's a lot in this county. So we chose at that point the Red Creek, Demond Creek, Yager Brook, and Big Salmon Creek, which is about 180 crossings to do. The next round that came through, what we did was New York State WQIP grant, and we did Wasco Lake, and that's pretty much the entire watershed in Cayuga County. Let me be clear on that. We didn't go across county lines. So there were about 250 there we did, give or take. Currently, we have a grant open. It's another WQIP grant. It is for Skinny Atlas Lake, our little sliver of that world, Lake Ontario, certain watersheds, because again, there's a lot, so we have to pick and choose, and we wanted to do something up north. And then the remainder of the Cayuga Lake watersheds, sub-watersheds, which we are currently working on. So, by the way, we are currently in the Fall Creek watershed area, so if any of you are down that way and see us, we are harmless. And next, please. So, sub-watersheds, just to show you, that there are a lot of them, and we have to kind of pick and choose where we can go in order for to fit under our scheduling, the funding availability, things of that sort. And next we have the green dots are all of our road stream crossings that are mapped. Number one, we have a lot. Number two, those are what are actually mapped GIS wise, where it shows intersections of actual stream and roads. They are not 100% accurate. because sometimes, like a stream will kind of skirt a road and not cross it, or vice versa, and it shows incorrectly on this mapping. Or what is a stream gets to be a bit of an interesting question as well, because we have a lot of seasonal things where, is it a ditch? Is it a stream? Kind of depends on what day you're looking at it in some cases. So, okay. And so we have different types of road stream crossings. The majority are, in fact, culverts. Luckily, my culvert picture showed up pretty well here. So we have culverts. We have metal culverts. We have plastic culverts. I can tell you which towns seem to have gotten a deal on a certain type of plastic and size plastic at certain areas and went through and did a bunch of replacements. Any town, they got a deal at certain times. So that's what we see the most of. So click again. We have little culverts. That's actually a lot of them are your general plastic or metal, smallish culvert, just kind of hanging out, doing their thing, sometimes seasonally. Go ahead. We have big culverts. You can see that some of them are very large. The perspective on a couple didn't come out as well, but they're very large. Next. We have multiple culverts. We were just doing this one the other day down in the Ball Creek watershed, go town of Summerhill, because this is actually a nice one. You can see how it's at stream. So one of the things we discuss are stream grade for passability. You want them to be at stream grade, so all the little creatures, fishes, whatnot, can go upstream, just downstream, and that they have them enough water to do so, that the bottom of the culvert is an inviting place for them. It's not just that nice smooth plastic bore you saw. It's got some rocks and things in it. Ideally, they have what they call dry passage for either your semi-aquatic or terrestrial creatures. Yeah, that doesn't happen a lot of times. It's one or the other often, to be honest. They're all dry or they're all wet. But this one's actually a really good one. So that's why. And next. We have some very unique culverts, and I actually have a lot more. Somewhere we have done a lot more of them, where they're actually stone laid up, old stone. There's one down in Union Springs by the cemetery. I think that was actually stone blocks, and it was in amazingly good shape, but I don't know where the pictures are. So, okay. Did I mention that the NAC website's a little iffy? Sometimes it eats things. Next. We have undersized culverts. We have culverts that are undersized, partially blocked, poor condition. Doug told me I couldn't use names on most of them, but let me just.
Towns out.
I'm not calling out the town. Anybody here from DOT? However, this particular culvert has caused a world of issues in major storm events where it is. We also don't have a good picture of the perspective, but the road is maybe 25 to 30 feet above the top of the culvert, and it has flooded to that point and washed across the road and caused some issues. So, we drive over these things every day and we don't think twice about it until the day that we have that really bad storm event or really bad something happen, and then we think about it. But let's just also think about the aquatic passability for this, because on the other end, which nobody can get to, we couldn't get to it, otherwise I'd have a picture. It is a drop off of, I don't know how far because we can't get to it, we can't see it. It is a huge drop. So this is actually a true stream, and there is no way in the world that any little fish, any little creature of any sort is crossing it, and good luck if they want to cross that state road and not die. So there's a lot going on with these things. The good news is that it's probably, as poor as it is, it's got a lot of road above it to actually collapse and cause that kind of a problem, I suppose. So there is that. Okay, next one. Culverts with issues. So here you can see a nice metal culvert that used to have a bottom, probably 30, 40, 50 years ago. No longer does. You have that pocket picture I forgot to move. I'm sorry. The culvert below that has a nice drop though. So again, you don't have any way for the little fish or creatures to get back into it. the one with the doubles here, you can see it actually is two, one on top of each other. That wall is sagging. And it's actually, the picture doesn't do it justice because it's also leaning. So again, might be a bad day. That's just on a private road though, so not as many worries. And the one above it, you can see, you can't see how well it's leaning, but there's a lot of undercutting around those big blocks, and there is a huge scour pool. Again, no little creatures are going to be able to swim upstream. Actually, I might have one that's similar in the next slide of that. So it's got problems. The pipe itself is pretty decent, but next one. There you have this one where I tell everybody if they're driving on that particular road, I would stay to the middle, because when we were out there, literally, if you touched things, you'd have pieces of rocks crumbling into your hand. We have erosion issues. So if these things are sized poorly and the water comes out with too much velocity, you have cutting. And then, of course, you have erosion and sediment going into your stream. And where do you think your streams go? In this county, everything goes to a lake. Next. This is one of my very favorites. This is, I don't know, this is all the same place. So if you're standing on the road, you're looking at that thing. That's not the culvert. I don't know if it's something from the railroad or what, actually, but it's there. The actual stream comes in next to it, kind of on a very nice angle. And then between the two is where the actual culvert is. And again, there you have the leaning block wall with not a whole lot of stuff under here really holding that up forever. And not to mention that it has a scour pool, probably half the size of an Olympic swimming pool, and the depth as well. And so it has a lot of issues on that particular spot.
Is that a public road?
Yes, it is.
Can you identify for safety purposes?
If you're down in the southern part of Genoa State in the middle, how's
Okay,
that?
sounds good.
Yeah. If you're in the southern part of the county, stay in the middle.
I don't like the way those blocks.
Let me just say, large trucks go over them on a regular basis.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, it's part of the problem when you're standing there.
Yeah.
The pipe itself, I will give whoever the credit that that plastic pipe itself is in good condition. But okay, next one. And then we have actually the only one I told I could identify. This Carpenter's Falls. So interestingly enough, I started because it's a nice looking culvert on the side, and it's got the beautiful waterfall. And yes, I know little creatures can't run up the waterfall, but they never could, despite the road. However, then Tim Snyder and I were talking about this, and he's like, yeah, look at that little spot to the left of the picture. And it doesn't look too bad in the picture. When I took that last year, maybe the year before, I don't know if I did it or the kids did. Other employees. Sorry. Time flies when you're having fun. But to that side, he's like, yep. And now I'm working with the town of Niles, and we have permission to say that, Doug. Town of Niles because the road has a hole above that little spot now.
Okay.
So, and we are working with them because they're a good town to work with, and they've been helpful, and we have had a good interaction. But even that little spot from a year or two ago that doesn't look like much is turning into an issue now. So, and next. Okay, and then we have bridges. So, bridges tend to be, for aquatic connectivity, a better thing because they're at stream grade. They tend to have the same sort of bottom underneath them for almost all of them, I'd say. So, bridges next. And we have all sorts of different types of bridges. We have your little combination bridge that kind of looks, it's a smaller side road. We have a bit larger bridge that's actually with a truck on it. I just like the picture because it kind of does show what this infrastructure has to stand up to. And I will tell you that there are some of these where if we're out there doing and the trucks or cars or anything come over and we stand back a little bit because some of them shake more than they should. That one surprisingly was not, although because it had so much water, we weren't directly under it. But a lot of times we are literally directly under, or in certain cases, if the culverts are big enough, we're in those. And there are places where like, yep, not gonna hang out. So next. We have some big bridges. As you can see, they have the abutments in the middle, but again, look, they have that beautiful, just natural look about them for the most part. We have some bridges that look a little rougher. That's the same one, but you kind of see that the decking of it is got some wear and tear. The sides of it, the picture doesn't show up great, but there's some cracks in the concrete. Okay, next. Then we have some bridges that are actually pretty new looking and have, they've got the armoring on the sides or the wing walls on the side, so you're not getting a huge scour pool come through. And those are nice to see, and you feel safe walking across them. And next. So, what we're looking for when we do all these is, of course, the passability of them to make sure that the little creatures can get from one side to the other. We are looking at the public safety, our own safety, and water quality, because we are finding project sites. And go ahead, give me the next one, because I don't remember where I put it. Okay, there we go. So this is one of the culverts that was, as you can see, the before picture isn't a great picture, but the before picture is this kind of crappy pipe. And it's probably sticking out above the stream grade, not on one side, then both. And it is something that we worked with the town on, and that's in the middle of did it. And then now it's this beautiful open bottom arch pipe culvert. And you can see it's a nice natural stream grade. And the road is no longer closed because they had to close the road when the culvert went. Bye-bye, bad things happened. And it's, it's been a very good, positive thing that we've done working with the town on that. So that's one of the steps. The main thing we are looking for, go ahead. Okay, so what do we do with all this information? We have it, it goes into this massive database from NAC that is many states, and you can actually go in and search by state, and you can search by town or GIS map. It is possible to search by the road or the stream. However, everyone that puts these assessments in, and they're out in the field standing in a stream with usually a tablet or, maybe a piece of paper. So the road names may be slightly variable. The stream names might be slightly variable. Say there's Dutch Hollow Brook. It could go as Dutch Hollow, Dutch Brook, Dutch Hollow Brook. Makes it a little more difficult. And then there are times that really, if you're up in the real headwaters, you're not really sure where the main stream starts. So it may be an unnamed trib. So that makes it a little harder, but you can search them and see all the pictures that are there. As part of the protocol, we don't have to. We are encouraged to take inlet, outlet, upstream, downstream, and additional photos if necessary. And it shows the size of the culvert condition. They do some sort of amazing calculations to show the percentage of passability, but usually when we're out there, we're like yes or no, or sort of. We also have this information available to the towns so that, we can point out, hey, you might have a problem over here. Would you like us to work with you on that? And we too have been able to, I know Tim has put in several grant proposals through the DEC WQIP program in order to address some of these issues, because again, they're not just a public safety issue, they're frequently a water quality issue where there's no armoring and this water just shoots right out or washes out the entire road or the entire ditch, stream, whatever it is. So that's something that we very much are looking at, I think, as we go forward. The actual problem on our end with that, I would say, is that we find a lot that would really benefit from something like we did out there on that last slide. And to put in for funding on each single one is, it's a lot of work. And it's just, it's difficult to pick and choose when you keep finding something that's like, oh, over here too. So, but they are all there. And next. Questions, comments, discussions? Yes, sir.
In terms of the pure culverts, not the bridges, but the pure culverts, it seems to me that the floor of that culvert has to be aligned with the bed of the brook running through it.
Ideally, so that's what one of the things we certainly look for is that they're supposed to be, they ask if it's flow aligned, so in a linear path with the stream coming in and out. And yes, the bottom, if it's at stream grade, or some of them are, what we call perched, and Doug was asking if I had found a picture and I didn't. They're like above the entire stream, so like the water is only going to go through them at high flow times because it actually has to rise and go through and then drops out on the other end. That's not the ideal way to do it. You do want them exactly at the original stream grade. In some cases, because we have, some, and it's interesting doing these because you find that each watershed is a unique spot in itself. I mean, even the sub watersheds. But it's interesting because some of those stream grades, you can tell where they would be originally. And some of them, these roads have been in place hundreds of years, and you come to the end of the pipe and it just drops. And it probably had to drop originally because the water, that is, because it's a long ways down. We have waterfalls around here, Skinny Atlas Lake. So, yeah.
There are all the new requirements for the permit. You have to bed the pipe.
Yeah.
Into the stream itself, and you can do it a couple different ways. Like the one was like the last slide where we actually worked with Dresserville Road and the town of Sempronius. That's the arched culvert, and then that had, so we just had two channel that tied into, so it's native material at the bottom. Other times you have to actually put material maybe at the end of the pipe
Mhm.
to back other material that's coming down it to fill the pipe that way if you can't get it set in there.
So those arch culverts are 3/4, they don't have the floor.
Correct, yeah, at least the one in the one picture, yeah, it's
Yeah.
just open bottom. So you gotta de-water, you gotta pump
Can
around,
you
you gotta,
Go back to the
like, those
triple
are
one.
pretty good projects.
Or is there, any of this climate change reflected in the level of these streams?
Yeah, you're getting these harder, faster storm events that are coming through and dumping 5 inches of rain.
Big upsides, culvert pipe sites.
Yeah, we find different things too. You might find in the same flow path, a 10-inch going into an 8-inch that then goes up to an 18-inch, and you go, wait a minute, should get bigger when you go down the hill, and you see all kinds of stuff. And we've noticed it, and like Val mentioned, when we put in grant application for this, they want it one at a time. Like, we can't lump them together and go, we're gonna replace 5 culverts in the Dutch Hollow watershed. We have to replace this one, and then we have to, so the time it takes to put an application together, and that even to manage it, forget it, it's really prohibitive to put a lot in. So it's just a matter of like, hey, which ones are bad? Who do you guys want to work with?
You have to measure the flow at different times of the year or one time or?
We just base it on watershed. It depends on what size storm you want to plan for. You're planning for a
Point
1-year
CNN.
storm event, a 5-year storm event, a 10-year storm event, a 100-year storm event, now everything they want. When you start talking a 500-year storm event, I don't know how you feel. We have little speed bumps in every road around here because you have to upside the pipe significantly, compared to the road. I mean, our main things are to make sure that it's passability.
Yeah, like that one, it's, those are actually, they do have a bottom, they're an elliptical culvert with a bottom in them. But it's not 100% covered with the same strata of the rocks and the gravel and stuff, but it's probably at least 75% coverage of the same thing. So if you're a fish, you're probably not too concerned. You've got this great little shady spot to hang out. So that's those are nice as well. But yeah, and it's interesting, Doug, too, because we were just out in the Paynes Creek sub-watershed, which has Paynes Creek and Little Creek. And we were joking with each other as we were out there that one of them had better culverts than the other, and they're next to each other. I mean, they're parallel. And one of them, the culverts were actually pretty decent, and the other could have used a little TLC for several of them. But as Doug says, getting that funding in that way, it's a little silly the way they have it set up, because it would be much better to go in and address an area such as those that Ani doesn't want to drive on. And I suggest everyone drive in the middle of the road unless there's a big truck coming. If there's a big truck, just, find a safer spot, not on a culvert, and pull over a little. Just saying.
Even pictures like this where you have the multiple culverts, what people don't think about is every little gap there in between that's going to collect debris, that's going to trees, anything else coming down, or silt sediment might fill the whole left one up. So that channel or that bridge or system, I guess we can call it, was designed to have 3 open pipes of a certain size conveying all that water through. All of a sudden, the tree jams went up and a bunch of other material comes behind it. or it drops a bunch of sediment in front of one of them, now you only have two functioning, or maybe you have a quarter of one, and maybe another quarter of another one, and then one full one. So it gives us a chance to just talk about maintenance and.
Yeah.
And not just replacing the culvert with a different system, and even there was one with a bridge with a big abutment in the middle.
Yep.
That also is gonna collect stuff, it's gonna collect trees, it's gonna collect debris, it's gonna collect silt sediment, and then that starts to form an island, which then blocks off a whole, even though it's a bridge instead of a culvert, it could close a whole channel
Oh, yeah.
to the flow, and now you're asking that system that's supposed to take X amount of water to take half of X amount of water, and then that water goes somewhere else, backyards, basements, over the road, over everything else. So I mean, you get to see a lot of, I
You-
think you guys saw how many culverts, 1,000 culverts in the whole county. It's
Yeah, I mean, there are thousands out there. We have done over about 650 right now. We're still working on them with this grant cycle, and I don't know with funding, basically, we probably will continue to put in for funding as long as it's available for that project, but who knows with the state. But yeah, like Doug says, even these three, they look fairly even in the picture, but one of them was taking less water, and that happens pretty frequently. The more you have, the more they're divided up. Not just, they don't get divided evenly, let's put it that way. It's a natural thing. It's a natural progression. That one of them will get kind of filled up, dried out, whatever. I have some, we've done some that you can't, they're big culverts, they're big culverts. And you can't see the inlet, usually the inlet because of all the debris and things. I mean, there was one I was out on a few years ago that, well, my insurance company doesn't need to worry about it, but I was climbing around on this pile of sticks just to see if I could find out how big this culvert was, because you couldn't see it. And it was big, but you still couldn't see the end of it. It was just completely blocked.
I guess the last takeaway for this protocol is it's something uniform across the state. So the paperwork that Val and Robbie and Haley and Tim, when they go out to do all that stuff, that same thing is replicated in every other watershed across New York State. That's why we had to get trained. You had to have one person reporting it all. Like, it's very controlled kind of setup. So everybody, the data is consistent across the whole state, collected and uploaded into this database.
What percentage of the county?
We've done primarily, I don't know percentage, I would say maybe 50, 60 is that, because we haven't done the northern watersheds much. The only one on the northern part we've really been able to do thus far is the front of East Amherst and whatever the other one is. So it's a small slice of Lake Ontario watershed. And some of that is because Seneca River is going to be more challenging in certain ways. When we started, we wanted to make sure that it was a watershed that had some concerns back in 2018, and they had just had the major floods come through, like Union Springs area, I believe. So that's kind of why we were concentrating there. And like I said, every watershed is different. Some of these are virtually impossible to get to. And I will say we have missed some in some of these areas because of just accessibility. There's nowhere to get to them. We're really not supposed to go trespassing. So, staying in the right of way and accessing anything of these, sometimes it's just not possible. And, so that we have missed some in certain areas. I know this, but if anybody wants to go rappelling and is better at it than I am with major state route, you just let me know. Oh, there's not a pass fail. It's just an assessment.
So there's gotta be recommendations on points which focus on. Or no?
It's such a sliding scale, honestly. It's an incremental scale. I mean, it's not like there are some that we've gone, oh, we need to do somebody needs to do something here. But there are so many of different increments. It's not like an easy, well, you're at 65%. Yes, they have that for the passability, but even that I find is it's probably a little subjective, even for the passability, because is it a major enough stream that it's a huge deal? Yeah, some of these are pretty minor. So I'd like to say there's an easy answer to that. There's not. Sorry.
So in cases like this picture you have here,
That's one of our good ones.
That's one of the good ones, but if it was like that and then fail condition, so the recommendation would be to remove the entire system and put in some sort of like an open.
Yeah, and we would leave that to the highway department, obviously, you know, like but they must interact with the state. Some get flagged.
But when you're replacing, existing culverts and fail conditioning, trying to go lean more towards like a box culvert or an open arch that allows.
I would versus something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got it.
Just to keep that
Yeah.
debris build up, silt set to build up, keep that flowability.
Yeah.
Like rip that out, and put something of a larger span. They don't gotta worry about, does it become a bridge at what point, versus a culvert, right? There's certain dimensional things and all the legal stuff that goes along with each of those. So that's why we look at it for the water quality side of things. So when you're talking about prioritizing, it's like, are we prioritizing for water quality? Like the alignment is terrible, or is it more, wow, this thing much difficult?
And it's tough because you've got to, I mean, what town budget is going to say, oh, let's go in and replace 17 of these this year when we have a nice piece of plastic pipe we can plop in and our problem is going to be solved relatively. I mean, it's a reality of it.
So, priority question, if you have, and I'm not saying that you do, but if you have an organism that's maybe unique or distinctive, do you prioritize that particular brook or river over another thing? If you had a rare species of frog, you ever have to use that as a?
We haven't. I know I've looked at those maps a little for some of our some things we've done. I think that it would really depend on the funding organized, who's reading the funding proposal and how they felt about it is my theory on it, but I could be wrong. What do you
I think
think?
something like that would help get it funded.
Yeah.
To be able to allude to it in the narrative of the grant that you're submitting.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it seems that a lot of these were probably built before we had as great sensitivity as we have now.
Oh,
To
yeah.
the critters that you started out with. I mean, I'm sure some of those things were built.
So that
consciously
unique,
with the
some of
things
these unique.
You weren't worried about the frogs yet.
And interestingly enough, some of the really old stuff, the old railroad bridges under the fire lanes, the really old culverts, like I said, there's a stone block one down outside of Union Springs or in Union Springs, that really old culvert that I showed on one of the slides. They may not be in exceptional shape, but they're still in decent shape. And many of those actually do have the open bottom that's more extreme grade, which is interesting. It's just, pipes made everything easy for us, which is great. But some of those actually have better passability and they had some pretty decent lifespans on some of that stuff. They know how to engineer it, right?
Yeah, I think they didn't know how to engineer it, so they just overbuilt everything. And
Yeah.
that's why everything is still standing.
That's true. They didn't so some of it's true. And they had some really good materials, I
Yeah.
think.
Knowledge is power, but in some cases it also ends up
It's counterintuitive sometimes. Yeah.
driving the cost of things to be the cheapest thing possible, and
Yeah.
then we get into these situations.
Yeah.
But I actually went on and I downloaded a set of data from you guys.
Uh-oh.
I actually picked Janela. And just so everyone's aware, they report on 38 different column items, item numbers, and I mean some of them are just like the inspector or whoever, coordinator it's called. But yeah, there's 38 different columns here to fill out. Different types of watersheds, how high the inlet is, how high the outlet is, the drop or the lift or whatever we want to call it, what type of culvert it is. But there's no condition assessment for the culvert because that's not what you guys are there for.
Actually, interestingly enough, on our assessment protocol, there is, and it's a very limited one. It's poor, okay, or it's either good or new. I think it's new. And that's it.
They don't report it in here though.
No, how do I put this nicely? There's a few lacks in their programming.
Okay. Yeah, it's very rudimentary looking when you're going to try to download data and stuff.
It's given us some fits. Actually, there are probably more than show up on that we've done over the years because they've had some glitches and things got eaten. I mean, even when I was going to look for some of the some pictures of places that we've been in past years. I don't know where it is. I know we did them. I know we uploaded them.
Yeah.
What they did with them,
Who
I can
knows?
tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, but then there is an overall evaluation, significant barrier, severe barrier, minor barrier, no score, insufficient information.
Yeah.
So, do you guys pass, this along? Do you have some sort of protocol to just use it almost as an inventory for the towns that are?
Yeah, we can get that to the
responsible?
towns as we finish up the grant. We haven't finished it
Mhm.
this cycle, so that is part of that, is to get that to the town and,
Mhm.
you know, be like, hi, here you are.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
wanna
because
do-"
obviously we have to collaborate with one another when we're
Yes.
doing things like this, because you guys can only look at it in terms of water quality and
Right.
passability.
Are we going to die? Here's another
Yeah.
one. Yes.
That's not actually one of.
No, but it should be. To be honest with you, it really should be. I feel like they've left a few things out.
For sure.
They may have focused a little inappropriately, but
Mhm.
sometimes,
Yeah, well, this
So-
is a cool program. I didn't know it existed.
yeah.
Is sequestration a part of the formula here? I mean, do you ever plan on holding back water or is it always flow through?
We're just there to analyze those. I mean, that's a larger discussion and debate, because if everybody upsizes all the culverts, it's just gonna move all the water through versus areas that can. Maybe the ditches are deep enough or wide enough or long enough, or it could store a little water. Maybe upsizing isn't the answer, because it allows stuff to settle out and slow down and not get fully released going down the hill. So there's a lot of,
Yeah.
there's a lot of considerations, and that could be a
It,
lengthy debate.
yes, and it is, because I know I've certainly had some conversations recently with people who are like, hey, such and so upsized the culvert on such and so road, and now we're getting more water. Granted, they had a 5-inch rainstorm in 3 hours, but still, it's a concern, and I don't know, like Doug said.
I think you answered the question, but what's the biggest problem we have with private landowners vis-a-vis drainage?
Sometimes they just put stuff in and they don't really consider, you know, how it's gonna affect either the upslope or the volume necessarily exactly coming down, and they're just thrown in there because they needed to cross into a field or something. I mean, we don't go into too many private properties just because we don't have that jurisdiction,
Right.
unless we have permission if somebody else does too.
How do you interface with the zoning board if somebody wants to develop 500 acres of land and you know there's streams running through there and you know it's going to disrupt that flow? I mean, who, does the planning board make a decision, or do you have town engineers that make a decision, or do you make the decision?
Well, we don't.
I
They'll
no,
reach out to us, we'll talk to them, but we
Yeah.
don't know what's
but
going on.
once you get to a level of that size, it has to go through certain approvals, and if it's going to have certain types of impacts, it goes to the county even for review. So
Yeah.
it really depends on the project.
We have limited, we're here, we can advise, but can't regulate. I mean, there are a lot of times I can certainly say that we've all gone out on a site and went, wonder what they were thinking when they did this, huh? Now what do we do? So, yeah.
Okay.
Was the municipal buy-in for repairs and replacements generally good? And what does that look like? Are they all in stone and pipe and?
That's the one for Doug Moore.
Yeah, when we work on projects with the towns, yeah, usually they're hauling the materials in or out, you know, if we have to do it. And if it's a WQIP grant, they cover the 25% share. So, let's say that one at Dresserville, that's later on, if that project was $150,000, they had to pay their $50,000 share. So they would haul the rock in that might be needed to bed the pipe, or, you know, to have a guy there to help us out, because I mean, you're swinging this artist culvert into place. And, I mean, they're
That was
awesome to work
funny.
with,
Yeah.
because they appreciate the help. I mean, we just got a grant for, you know, $150,000 that they don't have their budget, especially small towns like Summerhill, where half your land is estate land, their budget is bankrupt. They had to do some of these things, yes. So we,
And by the way, that is Summerhill, and that was a nice one. So I'll give them credit.
Okay, I think I'm gonna cut it out. Thank you so much.
All welcome to talk to me about this or any other thing,
Yeah.
anytime. I work for the public. I can't help it. I have to talk to you mostly.
Thank you so much. Robert.
Welcome. Anytime. Thank you.
All right, did we have any?
Thanks, Michelle. And I have a comment. Corbin Gosier with with DEC, he holds a monthly it's called NAC New York Working Group meeting. And it's open to partners. If anybody is interested, I'd be happy to put you in touch with Corbin to be added, and you can join, as you're available, and share any feedback that you have with all of the NAC New York partners, and learn updates on what they're doing. And talk about what Cayuga County is doing. So let me know if that's something you'd be
Okay.
interested in connecting
Cool.
with Corbin on.
There's a NAC working group through DEC, Emily? And
Yes.
so if there's any need for collaboration or anything, you guys at Soil and Water could join. Doug, are you aware of that working group with Corbin? No? Okay, maybe Emily, you can send over the information, we can disseminate it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks. Okay, new business. Right? That's the next stop?
Yep.
Nothing new? Okey-dokey. Sounds good. Working groups, communications and outreach.
And we've been, I have to get that group together. Sometime in the next few weeks, there was a discussion as this newsletter was, being pulled together, if we should have, some kind of classified section for job opportunities, that kind of thing, and, so just want to make sure if we're going to do it, that we think through some of that before we, implement that for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could be like a new business item almost, if we want to talk about it maybe next month or something. How everyone feels about job postings. I know we share them in certain capacities, but we want to make sure we're fair and equitable to everyone that's interested in advertising. So, Michelle, how do we do it currently?
I just send them out by email.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're being sent out. I don't think there's any, I think if it's in line with the mission, which the most recent request was, then I didn't have a problem with it, but I know that there was some discussion raised internally on what we should, how we should approach that, so. I guess maybe we can just talk about it right now. Carl, I know you had a
I
response.
just didn't know what the limits on it were, I mean,
Mhm.
that particular ad, if I remember, it had several different jobs offered.
Mhm, yeah,
And I think it would have dominated this columnar space in the newsletter.
sure.
That's what I was thinking about. I mean, a lot of the agencies, the state agencies, DEC advertises jobs like every month, if you look at their regular columns.
Okay.
And I think it's good for our readership, even the lay public. They may have a high school kid that's interested in ecology and may like a job over, at one of the activities going on. So I think it's appropriate. I just didn't know what the scope could be. I was surprised. That was a pretty good size.
Yeah, but it was for Prism, which
Yeah,
is
it's
specific
appropriate.
to what our mission is.
Yeah.
So I thought that any of the jobs that they had were at least remotely tied to what we do. So Dan?
Yeah, I think the issue, there's a space issue, but there's also the issue of being equitable to all the partners, and where do you, where do you make that line on the, what's on mission, what isn't, if it's, I don't know, DEC has a fisheries job.
Mhm.
Is that water quality or not? And having some criteria for that, so it's not doing it case by case every time it comes up.
Sounds like, excuse me, in your next newsletter, you guys should get together and have a piece as part of the newsletter that said, we're now accepting advertisements for jobs or these types of things that align with our mission. Here's our mission. Right, so then that goes out to all the partners. And it's a fresh, clean slate for everyone, and everyone knows what the criteria are for accepting and putting things in the newsletter.
Mhm.
You might get what you asked for.
Yeah. This is true. So, all right, well, we can revisit and discuss further. I don't know if you guys, if since this would be newsletter thing if your committee wants to do a meeting or something in the next couple months to figure that out. Yeah, I mean, if people are motivated enough, they can find the opportunities elsewhere, but it would be nice if we are not endorsing, but providing broadcasting at least every once in a while. So, and I'm sure we can write a chat GPT script to decide based on a job description if it meets our criteria or not. So, okay, and thank you for the newsletter. It was great. I thought it was a good start to the year.
And once again, most of that work is done by Michelle. So
Yeah.
that's,
I know.
that's where the things.
Aaron really helped with this one. He did the editing for it for me.
So always looking for more information. I'll be writing an article for the next newsletter. So if anyone else has any really interesting topics. All right, invasive species.
That's not here.
No one's going to talk about invasive species.
No new news.
No new news. Nutrient and sediment. No news is good news. All right, agency reports. We are holding our septic system inspector training class today and tomorrow. I know Ryan Staycock is over there and Jason is over there as well, I think, doing that training, and Abby is doing it as like kind of an audit just to see what our process is. Tomorrow they'll be going out and doing a couple of actual inspections so everyone can see how it's done. And we are getting back into this Stony Brook water quality. What is do you remember the name of the organization? I don't know. The Stony Brook people are helping us decide. We're trying to figure out places to put monitoring wells for continuous monitoring between lakefront and septic systems to determine nutrient loading. And so that is continuing. We're trying to decide where appropriate sampling locations would be. They tried last year on Lake Como, but they encountered some soil issues because what they do down on Long Island, where they've been studying this, it's all sandy down there, and we all know we have very little sand here. So lots of rocks. So they've changed their approach, hired a well driller actually to come help install these. I think they're going to be 2-inch monitoring wells where you can stick a probe down in there and get continuous data. So we're looking to do Lake Como, a property on Owasco Lake, and a property on Cayuga Lake as well. And then if it goes well, maybe we'll expand out from there. But we want to paint a picture, at least in one little location on each of our lakes that have the grant funding available. So kind of tie it in line with that. Obviously can't get to all of those grant locations, but for year 1.5, let's call it. So if anyone knows anyone that may be interested on Owasco or Cayuga Lake, I think we're all set on Lake Como. We have already selected and are working with one of the homeowners there. Yes. I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Parameters, water quality parameters, interest.
I'm really not sure. I'm kind of on the fringe of it. And I think I will get back to you. Let me write that down.
If it's,
Is that through the citizens statewide?
Then we would garner nutrients.
Mhm.
With probes or that.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure what the monitoring exactly, what device they're using, if they're collecting grab samples every day for 3 weeks or something. I'm not 100% sure what the monitoring / sampling is exactly going to look like. Emily, was that Emily that was talking?
Yeah, the question is the lake monitoring through the Citizens Statewide Lake Assessment Program?
I will have to get back to
I was
you.
gonna say that's a no.
I don't think so, though. No. Let me see really quick if I can find that. Sorry, I didn't come prepared. I'm kind of on the fringes of this project, so just get a report on it periodically. Oh, they're gonna try to use a geoprobe to pound down a steel casing and drop a 2-inch PVC well with a screen beneath the water table. And I think they're gonna pump out from there. So like a mini well. Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll figure out what the funding source is for this.
Liz Kreninger says, if you send me a brief description of the program, I can forward it to some of our members who might be willing.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Liz. And I think maybe we were actually thinking about working with Tompkins County down for Cayuga Lake. Roxy, I'm not sure if you had spoken to anyone about that, but we may, I think we're at least working with environmental health down in Tompkins County to identify some places on southern end of Cayuga Lake.
So you talked to Liz or Doug already?
I think so. I think both.
Okay, great.
Not me specifically, obviously, or else I would have remembered.
Okay.
But yeah. So at some point, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my notes. Oh, we've reached out to DEC as well to try to identify a good place on Owasco Lake, and then via Tompkins County, we're going to try for Cayuga Lake. And then we're also may spread out to Canandaigua Lake and see if they're interested as well. And there's going to be a presentation at the end of the month from Stony Brook on the project progress. And then we're going to try to expand the program and see how it goes. It's something that's never really been done up here. They do it down on Long Island all the time. But we have a lot of pipe and stone here. They don't really use that on Long Island virtually at all. Lots of ETUs, Elgins, biomats, Presbys, whatever for their septic. So,
And Ann said same for Owasco Lake.
Same what? What is the same?
She can send out information.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ann. I'll be in contact with Ann and whoever else. And then Pat, I think we are all set on Lake Como.
Pat Mooney, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been in contact with Stony Brook, and I think that one of the sites they're going to do is at my house.
Oh, great.
And they were looking for 2 or 3 others, and I think they've identified some sites and are just waiting to get final confirmation from them. And my understanding, pipes are going to be put down at ground level, and I think they're going to be left in for a couple of years to monitor the what they're looking for is phosphorus coming out of the septic systems and going into.
Yes. Yeah, that's the specific nutrient. Yeah.
I think one of the comments I got from was I think Eileen O'Connor is heading up doing some of the stuff in the area, so she might be a good one to keep contact with about how that's going.
Yep. Yeah. Eileen's helping with that. I just don't have the capacity for it right now, but I get periodic updates as needed. So, okay. Any other questions on the program or any environmental health related things? Oh yeah, we're going into thinking about emergency planning for this year for algotoxins, and I'm in contact with EPA to figure out if they have any additional guidance or research or whatever they can share with us, because a lot of their stuff is quite outdated. Well, not outdated, but 9 years old. So. Who's next? Parks Department.
He's online.
Is he?
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Just a couple quick updates from us. We're working with the New York State Ready Commission to schedule the opening for the Sterling Nature Center. Obviously, once that date is set, they're really responsible for setting that date. Once it's there, I will communicate this to the board. So everyone's aware of it. Love to see you there at the opening date. There is no soft opening. The grand opening date or the ribbon cutting date is the date that the building will actually open. So that's exciting to see that coming down into the future. We're in the finishing processes of designing and bidding a 6,000 square foot permeable parking addition to the Agricultural Museum. It's a bit of a pilot program, working with the Friends of the Agricultural Museum to fund some of that. It's a pilot program because we would like to expand that to some of the other areas within the park where we constantly have grass parking and doing some stabilization, some marking of spots. So we're excited to see that kind of get off the ground. I'll have some pictures and things once we go forward and award and move through with that project. And just various other spring maintenance and getting ready for our season. So that's all I really have, unless there's questions.
The soil and water. I'm sorry, planning. I skipped you last time too.
Let me just pop up my notes. So I'm going to report on our Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance funding and county funding programs for this year. We're using FLOPA funds for the installation and implementation of best management practices by Soil and Water, the operation and maintenance of the USGS Owasco Inlet Gauge, the CSLAP programs for Owasco, Duck Lake, and Lake Como, the Owasco Watershed Lake Association Tributary Sampling Program, the Owasco Watershed Data Portal, public outreach and education on invasive species and water quality, aquatic vegetation harvesting, operation and maintenance of the boat cleaning station at Emerson Park, support for the septic system inspection program, and updating and utilizing the SWAT model for Owasco Lake. For our tributary monitoring program, our quality assurance project plan was just approved, totally approved this morning. We're going to start our training of our samplers next week, and then they'll start sampling this summer. FLOPA funds will be used this year for Nick Colas to update and utilize the SWAT model. The final report from last year's work will be released once I get approval from the DEC. The county is funding the buoy in Owasco Lake again this year. We used the FLOPA funds to create the data portal, and that contains the buoy data and some of John Halfman's historical data. And the county is also funding the CSI Tributary Monitoring Program and the CSI HABS Monitoring Program.
Thank you.
That's what I have. Anybody have any questions?
Soil and water.
All right. So for us, we're gearing up here for construction season. Obviously, the rains are going to set us back a little bit. Snow's been coming in. There's just a lot of water. I mean, it wasn't excessive, which is a good thing, but it's saturated out there. That's for sure. Some streams came up. We had our tree sale and our fish sale going on. So pickup and orders are coming in pretty heavily right now. We did wrap up our ag value assessments. There's still one or two filtering in, but those were due in early March. Technically March 1st, but they kept it busy because they came in a little late. We're actually taking advantage of the less traffic in some of the fire lanes because they're not down there. So we're doing some fire lane stabilization work, wrapping up one of the fire lanes right now, ready to move into the next one, hopefully next week, weather dependent, like everything. And then our staff attended the technical training at the Water Quality Symposium that was held in Syracuse. It's annual training. There's 300 plus people that go to it, mostly Conservation District employees. It covers a lot of different topics. And some students were there this year, some USDA folks were there. So it's our biggest training event of the year. It's a week-long training, and it's pretty good information, networking, all that stuff that happens. So it's pretty busy, and it's probably about to get busier here coming up with spring in.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Doug, well, you mentioned fire lanes. What responsibilities or resources do you apply to fire lanes?
So we're going in and doing some stabilization work. We got a grant through the WQIP program through New York State.
to cover 75% of the costs. We went through and evaluated, we chose Owasco Lake to put the grant in for, because we had a lot of reports, especially after some of the heavy rains several years ago. So with all the flooding that occurred down in Moravia and elsewhere. So we submitted a grant, got a grant, and then we went and evaluated every single fire lane around the lake, ranked them all, and found out we had about funding to do the top 10. Reached out to each of those fire lanes, got approval, dealing with individual, I don't want to call them HOAs, but some of them have little groups. So we wanted to make sure we worked with the right person with that. We'll cover 75% of the costs, and then the 25% remaining falls on the landowners. There's also the Owasco Watershed Lake Association rallied and got some funding as well to help kick in. Now they're all different, so I'm not going to say it's an exact 75, 12.5% match, but you know there's differences between most of them. So that should help alleviate some of the costs to the landowner. So we run it similar to any of our other grants. If it was a municipality on a culvert, they would cover 25% of the cost, and the landowners in any of these cases, and the fire lane specifically. For example, if we're working on fire lane 20 or something like that, that fire lane 20 residents and how they handle it on their own, we give them an estimate on what we think it's roughly going to be. So say it's $5,000. They figure out how to find the $5,000. One person wants to front it, go for it. But we just try and tell them this is what it's going to cost them. So it works pretty well, especially with Alva partnering with us. That helps kick it over the edge as well.
Any other questions online? All good? Solid waste management?
Just two quick updates. The first draft of the local solid waste management plan was submitted to the DEC. So it's under review right now for however long that takes. And then the other thing, our spring electronics event, electronics recycling event, scheduled for April 27th. Registration is open right now. But
Okay, Cornell Cooperative.
Yep. Last week we were kind of wrapping up our winter meeting season. Frank did a workshop up in the northern end of the county on using manure analysis and soil test data to get your apply the right amount of nutrients to the right field at the right time, and had some interest from some of the firms up there and doing a little more in-depth planning on that. Again, northern end of the county, a lot of those farms are not of the size where they're required to have a CAFO permit. So, those farms are showing some interest in, a little more, just documenting things a little bit more in terms of their planning process. And then we had a cover and flare workshop down in King Ferry. Not so much a water quality issue, but this is a strategy that the state's really looking at in terms of the goals that they have for greenhouse gas emissions. So basically cover the manure storage, and then methane that's generated gets flared off, that converts it to carbon dioxide. And since carbon dioxide is less potent greenhouse gas, that's where you get the benefit on the greenhouse gases for that. And then just kind of like Doug said, even though we don't do construction projects, but this time of year where we'll be shifting on the ag side to answering questions as they come up throughout the growing season, doing some one-on-one visits. That's all I have.
Any questions? Did anyone attend the thing down in King Ferry? I wanted to, but I had a different type of shitty situation to deal with. I wish I was joking. No, okay. No. wastewater
Oh,
overflows.
wastewater, okay.
No, knock on wood, she hasn't been sick in a
Okay,
minute.
that's good.
All right, City of Auburn.
What do you guys want to talk about?
All of it, no, 3 minutes.
3
Okay.
minutes or less. We're busy. We've got a lot, going on right now. Our annual water quality report will be posted here in the next few days on our city website. For last year's, reporting period. That's on the drinking water side of things. At the same point in time, we just received some documentation from the DEC for our speedies permit renewal, process at a wastewater plant. It is, it's a huge lift, a huge effort internally in terms of providing basically 6 years of just about anything you can test for, tested data, flows, mixing zone analysis where the outfall of our wastewater plant is, potentially looking into like headworks analysis on nutrients coming into the plant, capacities, and all of that gets wrapped in along with, wet weather flows and things like that. So that'll be a big focus for our staff over the next few months as we try to pull all that documentation together to renew our speedies permit for the next 5 years. At the wastewater plant, I will be presenting on the 18th to City Council around overflow retention facility options that we're considering at the plant to completely replace our existing overflow retention facility with brand new technology for better treatment capacity during wet weather events. We'll see which direction they decide to go. It's about a $15 million additional investment into what we've already committed to for upgrades at our plant. So pretty heavy lift and in-depth analysis into multiple different options there. On the 20th, Earth Day, coming up, the city is sponsoring an event down by our Mill Street Dam. If you guys would like to come down, we'll also be offering a tour of our hydroelectric facility there. That'll be at 9:30 in the morning on Earth Day, the 20th, followed by a river cleanup event. So that's kind of touching on things.
Okay. Any questions?
Now, how complicated is that river cleanup? I thought it was a great idea. And I started thinking about, how you manage it, whose equipment do you use? Is there liability insurance that you have to get? I know a lot of people just ask their neighbors to go out and clean up the waterfront, but it's got to be more than that.
I don't get into the insurance side of things too much. I just show up and volunteer.
You don't ask any questions.
I just help out. Yeah. Like we used to back in the day, right? So hopefully that's all it is.
I don't know if Liz could answer how they do it at Cayuga Lake.
And I'd like to reproduce it. It's a great idea.
Sorry, I didn't totally
We
hear
get
the
a whole
question.
heck of a lot of that. It's just volunteers showing
Rob was
up,
asking about
pick up and clean up.
liability and organizing the cleanup events.
Yeah, it's just the usual insurance that covers like the organization's activities. We don't do anything special. There's examples, I know, for like the regional canal stuff, they have good examples of waivers and things that you can pass out to groups.
And we've done that with other types of volunteer events, like did a playground build, community build, where that was, people were using hand tools and things like that, heavy lifting. There was a waiver that individuals had to sign, but for an event like a cleanup, we've never had waivers or documentation that requires sign off.
I would think if you're not on the city's land,
Well, it's public property. I mean, it's your land as much as it is anybody else's, but it's, you know, you're down along Mill Street, along the river.
Yeah.
It's city property.
Oh, it is the whole distance?
Lawsuit.
Yeah. It will be covered, it's right, covered on the
Or maybe our general liability.
Yeah, exactly. I would be surprised if it's not.
Right.
I
have
Emily?
something to offer.
Go ahead.
May I? Oh, thank you. So this is Anne with Aula. And in years past, that liability was always a concern. The way we worked it out, we did a cleanup targeting in Emerson Park and at the Owasco Flats, working with the organizations that had the responsibility of that land and they carried the insurance. We just provided the bags and the gloves and volunteers to clean. Another time, and this is a few years ago, it was a day that we said, anyone around the watershed, if you want to clean up your yard, your fire lane, whatever, then we had someone with a truck and we came by and picked up the bags of debris that had been picked up, tires and such. And we had made arrangements with Ed Wagner at the town of Owasco and with Gary Muchler, the town of Scipio, to bring the waste to those two locations for free to dispose of. And again, we offered bags and gloves, but it was up to the individual, and that's how we got around it. That's all.
Emily had a question. Do you collect and share data about the trash picked up? Adopt a Beach has a great form.
We do.
Great.
Yep. So our staff collects and takes everything to the transfer station, weighs and reports on that.
Quick question, Mike. No, I very much commend your efforts for working towards some treatment for the overflow facilities in the city. The benefit of downstream residents. I'm curious, what does that treatment look like? Is it a primary, secondary? Is that
It's through secondary treatment. So there's tankage for volume and, you know, initial settling. And then flows then are chlorinated and desalinated.
That's great.
Okay, I'm gonna move us along here. It's 11:15 and we still have to get through all the Lake Association and partner reports. Town of Owasco, Ed's not here. Let's move on. Cayuga Lake.
All right, hi folks, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll keep it quick. We really have a lot of events that are in the works right now, so I don't have final details to share, but it ranges from our spring conference, which will be coming up in June, hopefully. So that would be our North End Focus Community Conference for the year. We're working with a lot of groups, sort of like Anne was describing, getting litter cleanups organized for April around Earth Day as part of our Embrace the Lake program, and working with the Finger Lakes Land Trust on one of those, which will be really cool down at the new Etna Preserve in Tompkins County. For Lake Friendly Living Awareness Month, which will be in May, we're getting ready, working on a native plant nursery tour that will be open to the public. Yeah, and also looking out towards New York State Invasive Species Awareness Month and organizing a paddle, aquatic plant tour and sampling paddle down at Myers Park in collaboration, and that's in Lansing, Tompkins County, in collaboration with the Soil and Water Conservation District and the prison. So lots of things coming together. Just keep an eye out on our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, you can do that at our website or email me so you can get the latest as these things get announced. Thanks.
Thank you, Key. Cross Lake Center. I don't know if Keith has
Yes, thank
anything.
you. We're
Oh, we'll go back.
Okay, go ahead.
Continue, Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're getting back into activities. The board has been meeting monthly throughout the year, but we've had a couple of postponements because of personal issues. One of our major day-to-day activities is membership development. We're still trying to build up our membership and we're currently working on a program of work for the year to come. Our issues are pretty common across all waterways, populations, flooding. We continue to be the Shakespearean crowd that chases the Canal Corporation relative to flooding. I don't know if you're aware of the Flood Mitigation Task Force. It's out of Albany. But we've been pushing that. I'd like to believe that maybe we're the motive force behind that being activated. Flooding in our area is a chronic problem, as you know. We've had a couple of good seasons where we haven't had many problems, but there are other times when we have greater problems. And as New York focuses more on climate change and preparing for these things, we thought we'd have to have our oars in the water relative to moving that canoe. So flooding remains probably the top of our agenda, although we don't work on it every day. Invasive species, especially water chestnuts, have been a major problem for the last few years. You've heard about it. We really don't have the right organization to apply for grant money on our own. We've taken a political route, and we've been rather successful in getting a lot of money, especially for water chestnut mitigation. We see soil and water has been very helpful. Doug has been helpful. Mark Berger in Onondaga County has been helpful. In fact, we invited Doug to a meeting next week to help us coalesce our thinking about the best routes for us to take. The problems with the water chestnuts are not resolving themselves. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And I know that most of those problems are east of you, and be thankful they are east of you. But there are people that live east of you, other than Native Americans, that are concerned about this. So we're I think invasive species is probably the thing we talk about most. HABs is something we look out for on a broad basis, but it's probably the invasive species issue that disrupts our membership and drives our membership. That's why people come to us, because they can't get their canoe through the water chestnuts, things like that. So those are the things we're working on. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Keith, did you have anything to add about Cayuga Lake?
No.
Thank you.
I do though.
Oh, Roxy, go ahead.
Yep. So Isaac's been busy trying to get some projects revived, and he's got a couple new ones. He's got Seneca Falls Rain Garden and a Covert Rain Garden. He got the Ulysses Ditch Project going again, and he and the supervisor are going to find some good locations to do the demonstration work. He and Aaron Parazzini are working with the town of Covert on their WQIP application they've made for their salt storage barn, and they hasn't been approved the last couple rounds, so they're going to help them get that spiffed up, so they hope they can get funding this time. And Isaac helped with the town of Fayette's comprehensive plan. I guess the consultant reached out and asked for some conservation practices. In regards to that, we are working to put together a municipal checklist that will be accessible for folks when they want to look for any kind of suggested good approaches for water quality. On a joint effort with the network and us, Liz Kreitinger has suggested, how can we move forward with this draft TMDL? So we're looking at the CWIO RPP and the DEC's HABs action plan and the TMDL, and we're trying to find all of the places that they converge so that we can get the most out of any effort. So we're making some progress on that, and that'll be a shared tool when we get that done. For updating our project list, Isaac has been meeting with all the districts. He's met with Seneca and Cayuga counties. He's meeting with Tompkins County next week. And we've been talking to Schuyler County. So we're getting around there. His next effort will be focusing on reaching out to highway superintendents to update any projects that we had on our list or to get some new ones. He'll provide that to our technical advisory committee in late April, and at our May meeting, we will review and rank them so that he will have information if there are some that are ready to go in for funding applications. I think that's most of it. We are continuing to explore options so that we, like other organizations, can provide some local match for districts and other groups to get more projects So I guess stay tuned on that. That's all I have.
Okie dokie. Duck Lake.
Well, I have a small correction to make right off the bat. We were gonna use dicot. And, I guess the, applicator found out that the DEC didn't want them to use dicot. It's more persistent in the soil, you know, so we've changed to Nauticue, which is, another copper derivative of herbicide. So our way it's gonna go is that, they're gonna do 2 applications. They'll do the pond weeds like the curly leaf and the Illinois pondweed. They'll do that first in April. And then later on, we'll do the Eurasian milfoil. They're gonna use the same product for both weeds. And so that'll be our application. It's, I guess the only thing they are kind of waiting for yet is the applicant or the DEC, but I think that's been done. But I just didn't get word yet. So we're all set to do the weed control. They're gonna do the whole job completely, notifying the DEC of everything and doing all the things they want to have done. So we're completely clear. So I guess I can leave my boat in storage. So, I'll be around, keep an eye. It's gonna be interesting because last year, the reason that they went to a contractor or wanted to go to a contractor was, well, we did it last year and complaints come in like they did a better job on the west side than they did on the east side. And Kyle Long, our president of Suck Duck Lake Association, kind of took it in his hands to try and get a contractor. So now we're gonna use Labella as the contractor. They're gonna do the whole thing completely. They use their boat. They get the chemicals, they bring them in, everything is done. So, better for me. That's it.
Thanks, Dale. Right, Little Sodas Bay.
Okay, we've got a new mayor now. So Brian DiBernardo, who owns Turtle Cove, and he also bought Screwy Louis' bait shop. So he's a local owner. He's now our new mayor. And in terms of a couple things, down in the West Barrier Fire. Last time I was in, we have found that there's a turtle nesting area down there. So we've been working with the village. They've been very cooperative, and we made adjustments to the fence that's down there. It's supposed to be in for 5 years, so that the turtles can get up into the turtle area for their nesting. Also, we are going to put up signage, trying to direct people coming into that park to stay away from the nesting area. The other thing we do, there was a barrier that was put in to help prevent erosion on the south side of that West Barrier Bar. It was being held in place, tried to be held in place by wooden spikes, if you want. They didn't work, so they used rebar. Well, the ice has come in. When we get wet ice in the winter, it's propped them up. We had a lot of dangerous pieces of rebar sticking up out of there. So a couple of us went down with the mayor. We took a look at it, and we worked with them. We pulled up the ones that were not that were unsafe. So we got those out of there and got that taken care of. The last thing has been a lot of noise on our bay concerning Grass Island. And a lot of boaters that come in and get stuck on Grass Island, especially we're talking about in August. And so there was a lot of pressure on our organization, the Bay Betterment Association, to post or to have that marked. Well, we found out legally we can't do that. It has to be done by Army Corps. So contacted the Army Corps. They're working with it. I've actually seen them in the bay. Actually, this last week, I saw them again in the bay. And I think they're gonna take care of it. And finally, we're getting really geared up for, Monday. Our whole bay is, people were moving in today and opening up their camps and, or summer places and, I know that the winery had put out for reservations and they knocked it off at 700. So they're full for this event. Local businesses are all geared up and, I checked with a couple, owners yesterday, and, business is gonna be pretty good. They've been in town getting ready for it, so. How much, are you guys, off a little bit on that? It's not quite a full,
Depends.
depends.
Yes.
We'll have a minute and a half or so of totality in Auburn
Okay.
specifically,
That's still pretty good.
but it's 3 minutes and 22 seconds
Yeah,
up in Fairhaven, so that's pretty significantly different,
yeah,
but
And Union Springs and North, I understand,
yeah.
is in totality,
pretty
yeah.
close to-
Yeah.
And the last thing, last thing I gotta say is a question, are all the Finger Lakes, is the water level low? The reason I say that, I've been fishing, in Cayuga Lake 2 or 3 times this spring. We put it in Union Springs first. We had to wash boat out about 150 yards. We bring waders with us so that we, for obvious reasons, but it's really low there and it surprised me at this time of year that it would be low. So it's just a general question.
They're waiting for the snow to melt.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, Wattsville Lake's okay.
Okay.
I have heard Cayuga Lake is a little low.
Yeah.
At the water treatment plant, the intake's really shallow.
Cayuga's been low since last summer.
Yeah.
When we put the kayak
Mhm.
launch in Union Springs, we had a lot of trouble getting enough depth and it's been low.
I would say it's 2 feet low there.
Yeah.
Either that or the
It's
wrong spot to
historically-
put in a,
It's historically low, yeah.
okay.
All right, thank you so much. I've got to take off here at 11:30. I have something at noon that I have to get to. I'm skipped over Duck Lake, so I mean Lake Como, right? So sorry, Pat, if you want to go, and then Seth is going to take over for the rest of the agenda.
Okay,
By the
thank you.
way. Thanks.
I just kind of want to update on the status of our weed treatment program. In the end of February or early March, we finally got from DEC an invasive management plan template, which they got from the Nature Conservatory out of Vermont for us to use to put together a permit. I sent that off to Solitude, who we're contracting with to do our treatment. And I just received from them the other day a contract for them to do a comprehensive survey, an AIS management plan report, and an Article 24 permit application, which we signed and we're putting in place. So they're going to be starting in May through July, putting together, doing a survey of the lake, the water quality, all the plants, and putting together a report to put together this template to send to DEC, see if we can get our wetland permit in place. What that means for us, though, is that we won't be able to do any treatment this year again, because they have to do it like in May and June when the weeds are there. So that we'll have to, I think our goal is just to get this done this year and then start the first of next year, 2025, and hopefully start our weed treatment and get some progress on that. But that also means for us is we've been working this past year on our weed harvester that we have, doing some major maintenance on it so that we can keep after some of the weeds close to shore, around docks and stuff. our water level seems to be staying, I'm still down in Florida, but from what I understand from everybody, our water level staying about the same as it was in the fall, hasn't really gone up, so I'm waiting to see what happens when the beavers start getting active again and backing water up again through the land trust. It's an ongoing battle, so we'll just keep after that. And like they mentioned earlier, Stony Brook is going to be coming in and doing 3 or 4 sites on our lake with those 2-inch pipes to do the testing for the phosphorus from going from between the septic systems and the lake. And I understand it's going to be a couple-year project. That's just going to be to do their study. The probes they brought up last year, the depth did not work. It was like trying to shove a pencil down through the rocks, and they get down about a foot, and that's as far as they can go. So they have to really do some serious drilling, and hopefully that'll help us. And that's basically about all I've got. Thank you.
Any questions for Pat?
Any questions?
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to Ann with Westwood Lake report.
Great, thank you kindly. It's good to see all of you there. Just a few things happening here in April that I want to target. One, we have chosen, Allah has chosen April as our Take Action Month, reaching out with going through Action Network, sending letters and phone calls to our state representatives to support the submitted rules and regulations. We thought we would try to boost up interest in that again. During April, we have 5 volunteers going into all the 7th grade classes of the Auburn Junior High, and our messages on watershed stewardship. As Michelle already mentioned, more volunteers are getting trained next week on the protocol with the trib sampling. Some nice news, the Cayuga County Chamber of Commerce is recognizing Aula as their member of the month. So that helps with marketing and promotion within social media and efforts that they have. Another nice something I want to share, mature pair of bald eagles are setting up household right across the lake from me, and it's kind of nice to see the display there. I do have a question I wanted to post to the group, if you could help at all. Here in southern Cayuga, so the southern part of the Owasco watershed, there is interest in building wind turbines. And the project is called Agricola. It will be in the towns of Venice and Scipio. And the question of the residents are, what's going to happen to groundwater when you put in 700-foot wind turbines? Will there be any agitation and or turbidity caused by having those turbines there on top of the aquifer or shale, whatever, for the groundwater supply? Has anyone here present in the room any knowledge? How can we help these residents who are reaching out to us, besides asking for pre and post tests for turbidity of groundwater? Has anyone any knowledge or experience in that topic? Or is there any, like Michelle, or through planning, Carrie, is there anything through planning?
When they go through that process, and they're gonna have to do a long form seeker, which would study any of those types of impacts, I would imagine. I have no idea. I don't think,
yeah,
it doesn't seem practical that the turbine spinning would cause vibration or turbidity in the groundwater. So I would say just straight no, but that's me.
Oh, there is a federal program called ORS, ORES, and they say that this project, the project manager, they have to send out a survey letter to everyone who will be within 1,000 feet of some component of this project. And it is looking to be between 21 and 24 turbines being put up here on the ridge between Owasco Lake and Cayuga Lake. And I do know that they will be looking at turbidity. I just didn't know if there was anything else, you know, in this process that's about to be submitted to NYSERDA, and also. But thank you. I wasn't sure. Seth, immediately I thought maybe some of the vibration or jiggling of the motion of the rhythm that might be turbidity, but I couldn't think of anything else that they would have to be worried about. So
Michelle?
that's my.
They do work with DEC on a protection of waters permit as part of the process as well. You know, so there are some permitting requirements in place, and you can contact DEC's permitting, you know, to talk with someone that works in the protection of waters program to learn more.
Emily, thank you. I had not thought of that, and that would help. I just need to send this information to these residents we're reaching out, you know, just to get it. Thank you very much. That was all I had to offer.
Pete, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, they would add, I mean, it will be the long form, and so all of that will be studied, but point out that if you remember, and 15 years ago, Shell was looking at quite a large project along the ridge. And and so at that time, all kinds of issues came up from all kinds of people. And this was not one. And so I'm pretty confident that there is no impact on. I would be shocked. So, I mean, it will be uncovered if it is. But and if you remember, the issues that came up were of a range all the way from someone quoted a study that had been done by someone someplace that said that wind turbines increase the incidence of hemorrhoids within the catchment area.
That's believable.
And,
Oh dear.
and so my point
Little
is
atmospheric pressure.
all kinds of things were investigated at the time, and this wasn't even one of them. So that leads me to believe that that it probably is not an issue, but certainly I agree with Seth. It will be uncovered because the requirements are substantial. It's a big
Great.
project, so it's not my backyard.
Thank you very much for the information.
Any other questions for Ann?
I can go too.
You haven't, you were already passed over, right? You were asked if you had any.
Yeah, I'm good.
Good.
Just got that meeting as well.
Okay, sir.
Not that anyway. Not that.
Nobody from Skinny Atlas?
I've got Skinny Atlas. Their 90 final public meeting will be held 7 p.m. Tuesday, May 21st at the Lodge on Welch Allen campus. A draft of the document is going to the DOC and DOS for preliminary review in the next week, and hopefully it'll be available for public review prior to the public meeting. And then there's 2 stormwater workshops. I'll send that out by email, information on those 2. That was Aaron's report that I just gave.
That was Aaron's report?
Yeah.
So that wasn't Skinny Atlas Lake's report?
Well, it was both Skinny Atlas and the regional planning.
Emily, DEC?
Sure. Well, first I want to thank the Soil and Water Conservation District Office for agreeing to host the next Great Lakes Action Agenda Southwest Lake Ontario Work Group meeting on April 23rd. This meeting will be held both in person and virtually, and I just put the registration link in the chat. I think Michelle had shared that update with everyone as well, but some of the agenda topics are going to include talking about the November meeting recap, Finger Lakes program updates. We're going to talk about the sub-basin work planning process and discuss how that will be planned. And we're going to talk about baseline condition assessment project that we're working on to assess the current conditions. We'll be, asking for work group members to share their perspectives on the current conditions. Ultimately, this information and the data and the perspectives is going to be used to develop sort of almost a state of the subbasin report. So we understand our current conditions, holistically, and are able to use that to develop our work plans. And we'll also have some discussion about upcoming funding opportunities under the consolidated funding application that can support Great Lakes Action Agenda implementation. So if that sounds interesting to you, please feel free to register. It would really help for people to be registered so we can have the meeting set up, and plan for how many people are going to be there. So the link that I shared is both for virtual and in-person registration. Does anybody have any questions about the Great Lakes Action Agenda work group meetings? I'm happy to follow up with more info. The other update, just for everyone to be aware of, is the DEC and Rochester Institute of Technology's New York State Pollution Prevention Institute community impact grants that are currently available. And these are small grants that can go to community organizations, municipalities, lake associations to help with community, community outreach and community-based projects that will help to prevent pollution within those communities. So if you have any ideas, some of the projects that have been funded in the past have included things like outreach to restaurants to, use more sustainable takeout materials and reduce the use of straws, composting, food waste management, different projects like that have all been funded. So, if that sounds interesting, please check out that program. The applications are due by May 3rd. And I think everything else, got shared with this group through when Michelle forwarded our last listserv. But if you're not getting those listserv announcements, I'm happy to add you. So please let me know if you'd like to be added. I'll also point out that I Love My Park Day is coming up on May 3rd. And this is a great opportunity to show your love for your New York State parks like Fairhaven and, all the beautiful parks in the Finger Lakes. So Chimney Bluffs, all of those beautiful parks. Please, if you're able to, available to sign up for that. April or the registration open, but the actual event is on May 4th. May 4th. May the 4th be with you, and if you're able to help clean up the parks.
Any questions for Emily?
With that.
Thanks. We are in the midst of prepping for our various field programs for the summer. Namely, our watercraft steward program will be operational once again this year. Trying to increase our coverage for stewards on Cayuga Lake and Owasco Lake, which we just had some staffing problems with last year, but things are looking better this year. We'll be running our aquatic invasive species early detection surveys this summer, mostly focusing on Cayuga Lake and Owasco Lake. We'll be doing general kind of early detection. We'll also be collecting some ancillary data, looking at water quality parameters associated with these sites, and just examining community dynamics throughout the season at a number of different sites throughout both of those water bodies. We're going to our terrestrial invasive species early detection rapid response team will be active for its second year this year, focusing mostly on tier 1 and tier 2 invasive species, so things that aren't here or are in very low abundance within our region. to just better get an understanding of their populations and their distributions. We're also currently still soliciting submissions for our partner projects, which is a supplementary category of work that our terrestrial team does that focuses on, specific needs of our stakeholders. So things like last year, we were doing surveying on Wasco Flats. A couple other, I think, Cayuga County projects that we did last year. But if anybody has any submissions that they want to put through for anything from control, terrestrial plant control, monitoring, management, let us know. Reach out to Matt Gallo in our office. We're also putting together a number of full events for water chestnut and European frogbit with partners throughout the region and getting ready for our citizen science programs, aquatic and terrestrial and otherwise. I mentioned we're hiring, which everybody already knows this, for our steward program. We are happy that we just received an executed contract for hemlock woolly adelgid treatment in 4 state parks at the south end of Finger Lakes. So Watkins Glen, Treeman, Buttermilk, and Fillmore Glen. So those will be working in partnership with New York State Parks has kind of advised on locations for this work, focusing on riparian buffer hemlock stands to treat and prevent HWA die-off. We've already started the education and outreach portion of that project, but we'll be moving at the implementation stage. Hopefully in the fall. We kind of missed our window a little bit for getting something out the door in the spring, but in this fall we'll be moving forward with those contracted treatments. Also working with cooperative weed management projects, one working with New York State Parks, specifically in Fairhaven State Park, and a couple of other, mostly doing invasive species surveying and inventorying in some high priority areas in state parks. Another CWMA project is working with U.S. Forest Service on Finger Lakes National Forest, inventorying the ponds on that water body, which I think are in that land, which I think would be really interesting. We're happy to launch our giant hogweed control project, which is a NRCS grant that has, again, partnership with New York State DEC's giant hogweed program. We will be hiring 4 seasonal technicians to work embedded in those 2 project teams that are operating out of the Avon office and Syracuse office, controlling, monitoring, surveying for giant hogweed known populations throughout the Great Lakes Basin and kind of where that, of course, the Finger Lakes watershed as well. A couple just quick meeting announcements. Our spring partner meeting for the PRISM will be May 7th on HWS campus in Geneva. We'll have an interesting, I think a good run of speakers. Katie Luttrell, who is the New York Power Authority's aquatic biologist for the canal system. Her work is mostly focused on addressing round goby movement in the eastern part of the canal system, but she's also going to be talking about their approach to a statewide or system-wide invasive species management plan, which we're looking forward to. I'll also be hearing from Jonathan Rosenthal from Environmental Research Institute, talking about lingering ash research throughout the state, which is interesting always. And then Tom Algeier from Ag and Markets to give an update on spotted lanternfly in the state. We'll also have our public watercraft steward program training on campus as well. It's at HWS in Geneva, May 20th to the 22nd. And finally, we are starting to prep for New York State Invasive Species Awareness Week, June 3rd through the 9th. If people have want to partner on projects or events or want to promote an event through, we advertise through state channels. So happy to update that as meeting. So thanks.
Sam, have you had any Owasco boat steward applicants yet?
You have to ask Amy for specifics, but I can tell you that we're always, if they're good for Owasco, they're good for other Eastern Finger Lakes sites. So any promotion and any way that this hiring and recruitment for that position has been increasingly difficult over the past, basically since the first year of COVID. So it's tough. Eastern Finger Lakes specifically are hard.
Okay, we'll try to get the word out.
Yeah, please.
Is there a major requirement for that?
No, actually, that's a good point. Thanks, Seth. Worth mentioning is that we are trying to promote more that we do hire high school students. We do also offer part-time positions, so this is not like, doesn't need to be like a full 40-hour position. And we were trying to be more flexible with our staffing because people understandably don't want to give out all of their weekends in the summer, so we can be flexible. And then finally, we are also, some of the best stewards that I've ever had have been retired folks. So if anybody has, I know there's a lot of retired folks that make up the lake associations and things like that. So if there's avenues in that direction as well, I'm happy to reach out and touch base about that too. So thanks. Good point.
With the HWA, one question you mentioned, Fillmore.
Yeah.
Adam, or maybe Ann, have you guys coordinated with Owl on that then?
Yeah.
So that there's no overlap.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we worked to get the project approved. We had to work through the state forester and kind of keeps track of all the stuff. And then through that, we, ended up working with touching base with Dan, Paul, and several other folks. So, yep. Awesome.
Any more questions? All right. No hub? We got any other email reports besides?
No.
All right, management council, Adam.
I'll hustle.
You're at.
That's both really get out of here, so.
You're at.
So our watershed inspectors have had some recent professional development opportunities, thanks to our partners. Some training for the septic system inspection program through Cayuga County Department of Health. And then also an offer from Cayuga County Soil and Water for participation through their sediment erosion control training. So we thank our partners for that support. They also, the inspectors recently completed and passed their pilot's licensing for operating our UAV, or otherwise known as our drone. So we're looking forward to some neat aerial photos upcoming in terms of making watershed observations as we move forward. In terms of the status of the updated watershed rules and regulations, really no change in the last several months. The New York State Department of Health is still underway with their rulemaking process, part of the State Administrative Procedures Act. And so currently, last I saw, they estimate that there'd be a notice of adoption as far out as 2025, August of 2025. So we'll see if that goalpost gets pushed out further. Okay, so we're finalizing our 2023 annual report, which we will circulate with the Watershed Inspection Committee for their review before we finalize. And some of the features of the report will make it into the city's annual water report, watershed conditions, and sort of a summary of the inspection program. And we'll also make that report available to municipalities throughout the watershed and our partners. We also have an accompanying annual presentation with the City of Auburn, May 19th. Looking forward to that. And that'll tie into the city's annual proclamation in support of the lake-friendly living programming and messaging around conservation associated with that program. We're continuing with our monthly articles for promoting conservation activities in the watershed, recognizing folks making positive strides, and believe in really supporting those who are making strides, and also recognizing their efforts as a means to continue to promote new work in the watershed. Okay, our AIS Clean Drain Drive portable billboard has been moved to an Emerson Park boat launch, hopefully to help promote boat stewardship there. I'd like to thank Michelle Wunderlich, who's acted as the project manager for planning and coordinating the tributary monitoring program for the watershed, for which ALA will act as volunteers for collecting samples. That program will get underway shortly with training this coming week. We've had some good development via the 90 coordination committee that's been in operation for almost a year now. Among our working partners who agreed to help us implement our New York State approved 9-element watershed plan for phosphorus reduction. And so we've been successful with a couple of grants. I think most noteworthy, we decided, we all agreed upon a direct ask with New York State via the New York State budget towards funding an Owasco Lake watershed specific agricultural program that would have similarities to the Skinny Islands program that is operational there for their watershed. And we understand so far there's $500,000 that's now that passed the state one house. I think there are many steps to go before we can ultimately approval for that funding for the program. Also, for the 90 committee, I know Michelle and I got together to discuss how we might continue to update our implementation checklist. Important to identify where we're making progress on implementing. So thank you for that. The council has an Owasco Inlet Restoration Grant and project that's underway for bank stabilization. There at the inlet, working closely with Cayuga Soil and Water for that project. Got all the compliance forms submitted for the project. I understand we have buy-in from most of the adjacent residents there along the inlet and the town block. And we have field visits that are being scheduled for release next week to get underway with engineering design. Okay, and then also sort of a fun project we are working on providing for improved public access at the Management Council's Fillmore Nature Preserve. 161 acre preserve in Sempronius and Summerhill. And we have a program from Cornell called Design Connect, students that are helping us to both map and post some of the trail networks that exist in the preserve. They'll be presenting at the upcoming Management Council Board meeting on April 16th to share with us what they've been up to. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Anything else from the group? You're all set? You get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make it.
Who seconded?
That's it. That was unanimous second.